大雄和
Question to Sean. I work here in the Netherlands, and I have some colleagues who are Chinese, and sometimes just by seeing Falun Gong showing posters in the street, I was curious, so I picked up a leaflet, and I was asking her, and she's not the most conservative person, but she was just minimizing the situation, just thinking it's not that important. It's just, and now I'm surprised, by seeing the movie, because it does seem quite important to me. Well, even a person that's Chinese and not that critical, and quite critical at times about the government, and when it comes to Falun Gong, she was quite minimizing and putting these as something minor in the Chinese culture. Why would you think that would be the case?
So to answer this gentleman's question, why a Chinese who is sometimes could be critical of the Chinese government still minimizing Falun Gong and it's not important? And my answer is, I think the reason is because people just don't know the truth. I myself, I think I fit in the description of this gentleman's profile of Chinese. My parents have lived through the Cultural Revolution, so they were politically aware of what the Communist Party could have done to its people. But when I grew up in the 80s and the early 90s, they always tell me that do not touch politics. So we do not ever talk about politics at home. And if I hear them talking about Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party, which is a lot of the time negative, they tell me specifically that do not discuss this with anyone outside of the family because the fear of the regime is so great. And for myself, I left China in 1998. And by the time this incident in Changchun happened in 2003, I was already not in China. But from my family members' description of the situation, they didn't know about this Changchun incident at all. And they also didn't know the police was going after the Falun Gong people at that time. So in fact, if you were living in China at that time, but your direct family members or yourself were not a member of Falun Gong, you probably wouldn't even know this hijacking the TV station's signal incident. For my family, we were free thinkers, so we are not affiliated to any religion, whether it's Christian or Buddhism or Taoism. So our social circle is very far from the Falun Gong people. And so therefore we heard nothing of what happened to this group, even though reportedly there were 0.1 billion Falun Gong practitioners in China at that time. All I could remember about Falun Gong was that there was an incident of someone burning themselves on Tiananmen Square. And to me, when I heard the news, it happened in 2001, 23rd January 2001. And when I heard the news about this, and of course that was via the Communist Party's official TV channel, my first reaction was like, eek. This is really very extreme actions. But at that time, I didn't know why the Falun Gong people were doing that. I didn't know they were already persecuted by the state police since 1999. So to a majority of the Chinese people, if they have not heard anything about Falun Gong, their first reaction would probably be similar to mine, that without okay, this is a little bit of an extremist religion group, and maybe I shouldn't, be close with them. And my next memory about Falun Gong was when I started working in Singapore, so that should be probably around 2007. I remember seeing Falun Gong people at the subway's entrance. In Singapore, we call subway MRT. So these MRT entrances, there are like maybe 20 over of them throughout Singapore. And the Falun Gong people will set up their paper cardboard pasted with pictures of how their member were tortured by the Chinese Communist Party police. And these entrances has maybe hundreds, thousands of people passing by every day. So definitely, a lot of people would have seen their material, but maybe it's because the pictures were really gruesome. And I think any human's natural reaction is kind of like, I want to look away from that. So I actually didn't really learn about what happened to them until 2019, when I accidentally bumped into a YouTuber, a Falun Gong YouTuber, and he had been involved in the Beijing side of the organization, and he was actually instrumental in doing a lot of the anti-government operations, especially in helping foreign journalists interviewing Falun Gong members who are being tortured. So it's only until then, 2019, that I kind of understood what happened to this group of people back in the early 2000s. And I think my experience is I would say, is quite typical of Chinese people who grow up during my time. And I would think even a large majority of them who didn't, proactively looking for the information about Falun Gong would still be in the dark of what happened, including the incident that was documented in Mr. Da Xiong's documentary. So I really think that his film is a critical path for a lot of people, Chinese and people outside of China, to learn what the Chinese Communist Party has done to this group of people.